Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Miles, and in this video I'm going to be talking about being triggered and how we can tell when we're triggered, which is a subject that I have an embarrassing wealth of experience in as someone who both gets triggered all the time and has had the great fortune of making a habit of studying that and learning how to do healthy things with that dynamic. And personally, I think that this subject of being triggered and being aware of when we're triggered is probably one of the most fascinating aspects of human experience that we can really go into and explore and develop mastery of. In part because some of the most impactful and bad choices that we make as people are ones made during moments of being triggered and being flooded with unprocessed and unresolved emotional experiences from the past. And learning how to be aware that that's happening in the moment of heat, in the moment when our emotions are just like a storm swirling inside of us, it's an incredibly high art because we're in an altered state of consciousness when we're triggered, and it seems very, very believable and real, even though we're being disconnected from reality. It feels really real. I wrote an entire book, kind of like carefully examining my own experience and my own journey on this path. It's called How to Open the Heart, and I'll be plugging it throughout this entire video. No, just kidding. I'll plug it a couple times throughout the video. So perhaps before going any further, I'll just quickly describe what being triggered means to me in my experience and in this conversation as I'm speaking. To me, being triggered just means having an unresolved emotional experience from the past activated in this moment so that it floods our body and our awareness with that unresolved past experience, altering our perception of what's going on right now. So instead of having a naked, clear, clean, sober experience of the present moment, we are drunk and high on the past, the unresolved emotions of the past, or the unresolved energy of the past. I think that's generally what people mean when they say, "Oh, I'm so triggered right now." It means that something inside of me that isn't related to this moment is freaking out because of what's going on in this moment, but it doesn't really have to do with what's going on in this moment. It's my own story, my own stuff. It's just so common and it's so ubiquitous. But it's maybe beneficial to just, at the outset, give a definition so that we know what we're talking about. But that's I think that's as intellectual as anything I'm going to say in this video is going to be. Because I find, personally, my own experience is the only thing that I can really talk about with any sense of confidence. So I thought what I'd do in this video is just share a recent experience that might be kind of relatable about me getting really triggered. And it's probably relatable because it has to do with just basically I spent most of 2020 writing this book that I am shamelessly promoting in this video. Because I think it's funny, kind of. I spent most of 2020, the whole lockdown period, writing this book and spending a lot of time by myself, spending a lot of time walking in nature, spending a lot of time not on social media. I basically like, I've, over the past several years, I haven't been active at all on social media, but I was even more inactive. And I wasn't looking at all at the activity of people who are kind of in my field, I guess, as a writer who writes about emotional development and empathic development. For that whole period when I was writing the book, I really wanted to not expose myself to the thoughts or work of other peers or contemporaries, because I wanted whatever I was writing to be fully my own experience and fully authentic to me, and not derivative, and yeah, just wanted it to come from my own well, basically. So over a period of many months, I wasn't on social media. I wasn't exposing myself to the work of other peers or contemporaries. And then when I was finished up the book and just doing editing, one evening, a few months ago, I was scrolling through Facebook, and I just spent maybe a half hour or something looking at the accounts of young men who work in the realm of, just kind of like people whose work is parallel to what I had been writing about, what I'm talking about right now, like emotional work and shadow work and personal development. And immediately I noticed something that was a very familiar feeling in the past, but I hadn't experienced in a long time because I had stepped out of the social media world, and the looking at contemporary peers who are successful world. And basically two things happened. And both of them felt incredibly toxic. The first thing I noticed was I just felt like shit. I felt absolutely horrible. To give a little like context to that, there was just this horrible insecurity response because I was going through social media and looking at all of these successful people who are like my peers. They're like men who are kind of my age-ish, who are working in a similar field-ish. And I was just seeing them being successful, and I was seeing them receiving accolades, and my insecurity was shitting its pants because two things were happening. One, there was like a shame response of like shrinking and crumpling down and feeling like a worthless loser relative to these people, like a comparison, and just feeling horrible relative to the perceived perfection of these successful individuals. So there was that like kind of depressive response of insecurity, and then simultaneous with that was another response of looking for the flaw in them, looking for where their wisdom had gaps, or where they were out of integrity, or where they were pretentious or had ego, or some way that my insecurity could feel superior to them and put itself above them. Again, rooted in the same thing, comparison and insecurity and a lack of just a basic connection to my own dignity and goodness. But those were like that was like the dance of feeling like a piece of shit, and then to compensate for that, feeling like I needed to be superior to the people I was looking at. And so all of this is going on. I'm feeling in my body all these physiological signs that I'm triggered, which is like a tension, a feeling. I have this feeling that I associate with shame that literally feels like burning throughout my body, throughout my head, my face, and my arms. I don't know if that's a common thing, but But for me, that's like a classic physiological cue that I'm having a shame response. And I know that when I feel that response, there's certain thoughts that will accompany it. And those were the thoughts. Those are the classics for me when I'm triggered in an insecurity thing. It's like, I'm a loser and a piece of shit and nobody likes me. I'm a complete like alien that doesn't belong in this world. That's the kind of self-deprecating side. And then there's the grandiose needing to prove myself side, which is looking for the flaw in them, looking to put them down, looking to prove myself and be stronger, better, smarter, whatever. So all of this is going on, and because I had cleansed my palate, so to speak, for many months beforehand, by being in a pretty pure place and also doing a lot of work on myself during that time, like noticing when these toxic emotional states would come up and pausing and trying to figure out how to not just live in that. That was a blessing, because when this happened, all of a sudden I knew that I was in a nightmare of my own making. And it was just unacceptable. It's like that emotional state that I was in of comparison, competitiveness, deflation, shame, and all the other works. It was just like, Miles, this is not acceptable. We don't do this. These are like illegal thoughts and feelings to have. I mean, it's okay that they're coming up, but this is not the sea we want to swim in. This is not something we want to like carry on. So we need to pause. We need to figure out something to do with this. Sorry, Glenn. So feeling all of that. And here's the thing, that shame and insecurity response, for most of my life, I just lived and breathed that. That was just normal, being triggered. And here's the thing, I guess I should probably make it clear that when I felt those physiological symptoms, like the tension, the burning, the clenched jaw, there was a bunch of physiological signs that I've learned to recognize. And when I felt those scripts, and I call it scripts because it's like these are really recognizable thought patterns that come up when this certain unresolved emotional stuff gets touched. And in this case, the unresolved emotional stuff is just, as best as I understand it, because my understanding is evolving, but for me, instead of just having a naked experience of like, oh, these are guys, this is what they're doing, it's not an assault on my sense of self. It's not a threat to me. Because of my childhood and growing up feeling like I was a burden, feeling like I didn't belong, in my family environment, when I see people succeeding, when I see people thriving in certain ways, it initiates a bunch of bizarre, hallucinatory thoughts and feelings that have nothing to do with reality. Like the fact that I would see just some guy doing his thing in life and then all of a sudden feel like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. I am a loser. Or on the other side, fuck this guy for for innocently living his life. You know what I mean? It's like, both of those things, like feeling like I'm a piece of shit or feeling like I need to, like prove myself because somebody's just doing their thing. They're both they're not healthy. They're not natural responses to seeing another human thrive. They're just based in the pain and hurt and rejection of my past. And so recognizing that, and I fully recognized it in that moment, I realized, Miles, you can do better than this. It's totally okay that this is coming up, but we can do something beautiful with this if we want. Or at the very least, not suffer in the emotional nightmare that this is. Because it feels so bad, and it's so unnecessary to feel that sense of comparison and that sense of unworthiness and that sense of unnaturally needing to tear others down and be unkind and have a closed heart towards them because of our own insecurity, because of my own insecurity. I make this all about me. Yeah, so what I did in that moment, I did a couple of things, and they really helped. And I'll share them here just for fun and curiosity. But the first thing I did was I noticed myself judging all of these men and feeling like really closed and brittle and competitive and insecure towards them. And I just paused and I decided to imagine that they had, and forgive me if this is offensive to your beliefs or whatever, it's not even about beliefs, it's just a practice in imagination for me. I just imagined if they had spirit guides or like guardian angels. I imagined how those beings would see these men. I imagined the benevolence and love and pride that they would feel towards these young men who are these were all guys who were putting themselves out there and learning how to articulate themselves clearly and be leaders and support others and be a positive influence. And some of them may have been doing so with a great level of integrity and purity. Some of them might have been doing so with some tinges of, lacking integrity here and there. And I just imagined how their spirit guides would love them even for that. Oh, that's not even offensive because they're just learning through that, and that's beautiful and it's sacred. It's not, there's nothing but beauty and sanctity here. So I really let myself like feel that really gracious, wide perspective and hold that. And I guess the part of me that was so tight and insecure, I kind of was like holding it and showing it that perspective. And I surely had tears in my eyes, like very quickly by doing that. Because all of a sudden, these guys, instead of being competition, I was just seeing them as like these divine children who had grown up and they were learning, and all of it is beautiful, and it doesn't have anything to do with me. They're on their own path. It's not an affront to me, and it's not even something that I could compare with myself or with anybody else. It's just this sacred thing. This is the first thing I did. And then the second thing I did was the part of me that felt like a complete loser and an alien compared to these more successful men. And I say more successful because the way that this deflated part of me was seeing it, he was seeing them as having, oh, they have this big following, and oh, they're in the world, and they just have a worldly success that because of my path, I didn't have at that moment. I don't have at this moment. And that part, I guess I just like paid attention to like what it was feeling and what it was thinking, and then I just said, Miles, like, they're just on a different path. You don't have those things right now. You don't have the kind of worldly following or success they have because you have gone on a very different path. And it's fucking beautiful. It's so amazing. And it's not a mistake. It's really like you followed your path. You went through different doorways than these people. And yeah, it's really different, and you don't have the kind of material things that they have. at this time in your life, but you're on your path, and your path is beautiful, and it's different, and it's fucking awesome, and you know it's awesome, and you know you know that you need to get over this bullshit of like feeling bad about it. It just is what it is. It's sacred, and it's different from theirs, and every one of their paths is different, and you're not seeing things clearly if you're feeling self-deprecating about where you're at. I don't know. I guess in essence, I just looked at the sanctity of my path, and the sanctity, because there's certain things that hurting part of myself saw that it doesn't have, and I had to validate it and say, yeah, you're right, you don't have this many followers, you don't have this kind of experience of success or whatever, and you have been doing amazing stuff that's just different. It's fucking beautiful and sacred, but it's different. And you know that you wouldn't have it any other way. You made your choices. They're awesome choices. So I guess and again, that really helped in that moment shift the feelings I was in. I guess because I was acknowledging the feelings, I was validating some aspect, and I was challenging that part of myself to see a bigger perspective. And it got through. And I guess I was also bringing something sacred, looking at those guys that were triggering me in a sacred light, and then also looking at myself in a sacred light. And I, all of a sudden I was scrolling through these profiles and I was like, yay, like this is just life, and I'm happy for them, and I'm happy for me, and and I'm probably gonna get triggered in 1 hour or less, because this is a dance that I engage in often. Anyhow, I just wanted to share that as just my own a recent experience, and I think it's somewhat universal. I think that's why people often feel bad on social media, right? It's this comparative thing, and it triggers our insecurity. Everybody puts forward this image that looks perfect, and even when they try to be vulnerable, sometimes it feels curated, and it just makes us feel worse about ourselves. And that's all fine, because one of the most amazing things about our experience here is having this experience of being triggered, and it being this gateway to feeling these really vital, powerful parts of ourselves that are holding energy and emotion, and being able to make contact with that and engage with it in a healthy way, or not. I mean, either way, it's pretty cool. The complexity of being human and being triggered. I'm humbled on this level daily, or maybe, daily, like, and maybe it'll make this video more enjoyable, because I'm not going to profess mastery over this, because if I did, someone will see me walking down the street later on tomorrow or something, and they'll be like, man, that guy's triggered as fuck. Like, I saw the video where he said he had this shit dialed. He doesn't. So I'm going to be honest and take ownership of the fact that this is something I'm constantly learning about and exploring and studying. And I really do feel that it is an incredibly high art. It's like an extreme sport or something. That's a terrible analogy, but it's a great analogy, because it's so incredibly difficult to know in the moment. And that's when it really matters. That's when I remember my teacher, my mentor, he would always say about me being triggered, because he would be always pointing it out. And often at that time in my life, I would be defensive and I wouldn't want to look at it. And he would always say, you missed an opportunity, Miles, because it only matters in the moment. It's like when you're not triggered and you can just like have like sober second thoughts or whatever. That's fine, that's good, to have self-awareness when you're not in the heat of the moment. But when you're actually in the heat of the moment, that's when it matters. That's when, like, the rubber hits the road. Is that a saying? I think it's a saying, yeah. That's when life is testing us, I guess. Yeah, so it's a really high art to feel the intensity of all of our unresolved emotion flooding through us and convincing us that we're a victim, or that life is hopeless, or that we're ugly, or that we're better than others, or whatever it is. To hear that, to know it's bullshit, because we've learned to recognize, like, hey, I'm feeling that shame thing flowing through my veins. Hey, I feel the clenched jaw. I feel the hunched over shoulder, the tightness I feel, or just this thought feels like a script that comes up every time I'm triggered. So I'm calling bullshit on myself. I'm pausing. I'm not going to do I'm not going to believe anything that I'm thinking right now. And I'm going to try to do something healthy and beautiful with this. It's pretty exciting stuff. And I'm sure that this video has only kind of like touched the tip of the iceberg. But hey, I might have to then recommend this book that deals very deeply with this subject matter. I think that is all for this video and for today. Thank you for watching. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. And just remember, next time that you're triggered, I'm probably triggered too. So you're not alone. And for both of us, it's an amazing opportunity and a really profound thing. Anyhow, thanks again for watching, and have a wonderful day.